You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 109 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. From deep in the quarantine zone of Statesboro, Georgia, we have author, writer, journalist Jessica Szilagyi.
Hey Dave, how are you?
I am doing good. How are you with your quarantine?
I mean, I'm fine with the quarantine. It's just been a surreal week or so. Like, everyone I talk to is like, can you believe this? Can you believe this? Like, everyone's just still in awe that this is happening. It seems like something out of a movie. Time feels very slow.
Are you okay? I mean, there was a frog attack.
I'm not sure if I was okay before the quarantine, so I don't know if it makes a difference. But to answer your question, yes, are you?
Well, the neighbor ladies, which one works in healthcare and the other's husband's works in healthcare, were huddled on the porch with 4 kids between them, screaming when I came home the other day. And I was grabbing the mail and I said, really good social distancing. They're like, we were doing fine until we saw a snake. And there was a 2-foot long, like, corn snake in the yard, sunning itself. Because it's not quite snake weather yet. They're just kind of emerging and moving around. Like, girls, I'm more afraid of your bite with coronavirus than I am of his. You're going to be fine. And you had one of your dogs bring a frog in the house.
I did. So I guess it was Wednesday night. I just took the dogs out on the back deck, and I have a lot of tree frogs on the front porch and the back porch whenever it's warm out. Like, they don't even hibernate or anything. They're just, if it's cold one night, the next night it's warm, they're there. But anyway, I usually try to keep them moving pretty quickly so that a frog doesn't jump in the doorway, because that's happened as well. And Stella, in her glory, I guess she's irritated about the quarantine. I don't know. But she just brought it inside. And I started yelling, no, no, no. So, of course, she dropped it. And then the dang things are hopping. And then I started screaming. So the dogs, with their PTSD because of the mouse incident last summer, took off hauling into the bedroom, like running down the hall to get away, because they know if I'm screaming like that, you know, there's about to be things flying and all that jazz. So
it's PTSD from the mouse incident and the palmetto bug.
Yes. Though they know, I mean, if I get a can of Raid out from under the kitchen sink, they get up from whatever they're doing and go in the bedroom, because they know that I'm super, like, way bolder and stronger now after, after the mouse incident. I'm a stronger woman because I survived that. But, like, a bug seems like nothing now, but I still scream and jump and prance around and holler, and so they just run.
And what were you planning on doing with that couch?
Okay, so I got a new couch, I guess, at the end of January. My couch that I had was just, I had it for a while, and it was structurally broken. Like, one of the support beams in the center underneath was compromised, and so it was just time to get a new couch. But I put it in the back of the living room because I figured I was either going to, like, donate it to one of those, like, furniture fixer-up places where they could repair it and then recover it and all that fun stuff, or I was going to give it to the Salvation Army. Well, both of those entities stopped, like, session. I was busy with session, and I would call and then play phone tag with them, and then both entities stopped doing home pickups after this all started, right? They're not coming to people's houses. So in my OCD glory of being home and having more free time, I was like, I'm tired of having 2 couches in a room. I don't live in a super big house. So it was crowding everything. So I was like, I'm just going to put it in the guest room out of sight, out of mind. Well, I measured the couch. I measured the doorway. I measured the couch again. I'm like, all right, this is going to be tough, but I can do it. And I knew that it would work because the couch was brought in the house before. But it came in the front door, and I was trying to go towards the back of the house. So I start moving the couch. It's going well. I get through the first doorway. It was kind of tough, but I got it. And I'm trying to go through the second doorway, and I'm telling you, like, I flipped that thing on the top. I had it standing up. I had it on its back. I tried everything, and I could not get it through the doorway. And I'm like, what is going on? I measured the second doorway, and it was 2.5 inches shorter or narrower than the other one, which it barely made it through the first one. So I try to go back out the other doorway because I'm like, I'll just take it out the front door, put it on a rug, and drag it around the house and come back in the back door. Well, now I can't get it through the doorway I came through the first time. Like, no matter how hard I try. It's now stuck. Like, the distance between doorway 1 and doorway 2 is the distance of the couch. So I am now stuck between the two doorways. Stella is stuck in the bedroom because I've sectioned her off. And 3 hours later, after sawing the legs off and using an axe to jimmy the screws loose that were on the internal side of the couch, it's on the back deck and has to go to the dump. So, I mean, it's in shambles. Like, wood pieces. So everyone's like, just take the legs off, just take the legs off. It had to be bolted on somehow, Matt Lowe. And I'm like, you guys think I'm an idiot that I didn't think to take the legs off first before this even started. But what happened was there were all these bolts on the outside of the leg. But then apparently, like, we're not talking about like a several $1,000 couch here. This was just like from my first apartment couch. And it was, what they had done was that fabric that they closed the couch off with, before they closed that and sealed it off, they had used screws and nails to secure the legs to the actual couch. Well, and then there was a piece of wood over that. So if I wanted to take the legs off, I would have had to cut open the fabric and then break that wood. Well, I ended up doing that with my axe, but I didn't want to do that initially because I was trying to salvage it. With the axe. I was pissed. Like, and people were like offering to come help, and at that point I was like, oh, no, like, I'm gonna finish this. Like, this couch is getting out this door, and it's getting out the door I wanted it to get out, no matter how I have to do it. I would have sawed that sucker in half if I had to. I got all the time in the world. I don't have anywhere to be. But I looked like I like ran a marathon. I was sweating, and like I had bruises all over my arms and legs from dropping the couch on myself, getting myself stuck between the wall. It's a big couch. It's 84 inches long. So, and it's not super heavy, but I'm just one person. But that's how I spent my Thursday. I was exhausted. So,
your pain pleases me.
Yeah, well, it was funny. Like, when I couldn't get it back out the first doorway, I just stood there and was like, did this really just happen? Did I really just get this thing stuck?
Well, at least it wasn't a new couch you're trying to move.
Amen. That's why I had people deliver the new couch.
You have people.
Yeah, the delivery people. Because of this type of thing. Because I live in an older house from the 1940s. So, like, part of the house was built by, there was no code. There was none, doorways are all, I would imagine every doorway in here is a different width.
When you had it delivered, the new one delivered, you probably could have tipped them $20 to take the old one out.
I asked.
Yeah, you're like, thanks, Captain Hindsight.
No, I asked if they would take it, or like, I tried that. I tried all different kinds of ways. They weren't having it. So now I have to haul it in my big SUV to the dump, which is just down the road. But it'll be a lot easier to get in my car because it's smaller.
Now it's in pieces.
Yeah. Let me just hoist this over my head and throw it in the back.
The Quarantine Diaries.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why I put it on Facebook, because, like, what else are we all... I mean, it's entertaining. Like, it's funny. I'm not the kind of person... I was mad, but I wasn't, like, mad. Just frustrated that couldn't do it.
So we have updates on the emergency powers from the Capitol that passed last week.
Mm-hmm. Disappointing. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, but I really wanted they approved what Kemp asked for. I mean, all they were doing was ratifying his declaration so that it was in full force and effect and they couldn't be challenged or rescinded out of nowhere. We knew it was going to happen. There was a resolution in the House and a resolution in the Senate, and the House version was in line with the code section that limited to 30 days before the legislature would have to reconvene again and extend it if necessary. And then the Senate version had an indefinite declaration, no timeline of repeal, no legislative check, nothing. Which I think is like there's a lot of things that are scary. We talked about it on the last episode. There's a lot of things that are public health emergency or not that are frightening. And my whole thing was this isn't like the type of declaration that you get when you have a hurricane. This was a public health emergency that has broad powers that once you give them to the governor, unless you go back to the Capitol and like pull everything back, it's in effect and he can do whatever he wants under those authorities, which are expansive. So the fact that there's no legislative check other than declaring it null, and then they wanted to give him an indefinite timeline of using it was like, what are you doing?
And friend of the show, Matt Gertler, was the only no vote on the resolution.
He was, and so there were two votes. The first vote was on the House version, and the Senate, they voted on their individual resolutions, and the House was like, we're not doing what the Senate wants. And for once, it was Kemp and Duncan against Ralston, and Ralston, God bless him, for once, only time probably ever, was in the right, in my opinion. Like, he went to bat and said, no, we're not, and Kemp and Duncan are very close. I mean, they're always on Twitter talking about their double dates and going to New York, ringing the stock exchange bells together, and like they're friends. And the rumor was that Kemp had called Duncan on Sunday night and asked him to pull the 30-day limit out, and he did. And so the Senate pushed for that, but the House was not going to agree, and so they ended up going with the 30 days. But it's still, I still think it's bad, and I just would have liked to have seen, there's two parts here. One, I told a lot of Democrats on Facebook, like when they were talking about it, because none of them voted no, and none of them even like rose to say, well, I'm concerned about this, or like they just said, well, we hope that he uses it responsibly. Yeah, those are famous last words. Great job. But, I mean, you hope that any lawmaker or executive uses their authority responsibly. But, I think that this is the first time this has ever been done. And so I think that there are things that can already be learned from this, and maybe have like partial implementations, because we did act so quickly. I mean, we're acting so quickly across the country and everything. And so I would like to see maybe like a smaller scale before you have the full authority from the governor's office just on one vote. I mean, they say that it's inconvenient to vote. Well, my apologies, but you asked for this job, and when shit's hitting the fan, like, you need to govern. So if it's inconvenient, then don't hold the office.
Yeah, I saw that he mobilized National Guard, including the Air National Guard, and Clay Fuller, who's running for Congress out here, was activated. Of course, he put that picture on Facebook. He is a JAG officer. JAG, Judge Advocate General. I'm not sure what the governor's plan is here with activating him. I'm not sure if we can court-martial this virus. But that's about all a JAG officer is good for. So, yeah, the emergency powers given to the governor, and we hope he uses them wisely. these lawmakers act like we have to do something, and something's better than nothing. And I'm over here screaming, no, it's not. Sometimes nothing is the answer.
Right. Well, and I would like to see, I mean, the governor already has full authority over the Department of Public Health. I mean, the legislature enacts things, but, I mean, it's an executive agency, and it's his appointee. So, like, I just feel like a lot of it was very premature, and I appreciate what he is doing right now for the most part. And I appreciate the communication his office has had to the media and to the public. Like, I don't think anything has been taken advantage of yet, but just because this is what we're hearing, like, here's the other thing. And I've seen this on the local levels in particular. I'm not saying Kemp has done anything, but this is what I'm seeing with city governments and stuff. You're working at a partial staff, or they're only working for essential things. So, like, I file an open records request, and sure, they're bound by the 3-day response time to say this is what, but they can extend it for as long as they want because they may not have all of the people there working. Well, if I'm trying to find out what government's doing and they're working on a reduced staff, or they're not, they can just cite emergency circumstances, it's even harder to find out what government is doing. So it's less transparent just by default, and you're giving them more power, not just from a unilateral perspective of checks and balances, but from the standpoint of, like, literally our entire lives, our property, our bodies, our finances, everything, our travel. And it's just sitting there. So.
Well, it's not what he does with the powers. And if you're a principled person, it is what powers he has. That's the problem. Is if you're uncomfortable with the other guy having the same powers, you should be uncomfortable with your guy having those powers.
Absolutely. And that's why I was frustrated with the Democrats. Because you complain about Kemp all the time, and then he asked for this, and you're like, hell yes.
Hell yes. Well, we have a Georgia senator, state senator, diagnosed with the Wuhan COVID-19 virus days after going to the Capitol for the emergency special session. The quote here is, after experiencing a fever and cough, I sought medical attention last week. The diagnosis I was given was not coronavirus, but I did get tested for it on Saturday. With medication, I felt better Monday and thought I was in the clear. Today, however, my test came back positive. Whoo! This is Senator Beach.
Mm-hmm. He's from North Fulton. He lives in North Fulton, but he has a little bit of Cherokee too.
Like Liz Warren?
God. That was terrible. That was terrible. But I'm sure that's why all of our listeners are listening. So you're welcome, guys. It only took you 20 minutes into the show to get that one. You're welcome. No, I was really disappointed by this because he said he was symptomatic on Saturday. He was symptomatic for like a week, but then he was tested on Saturday, and he said he started to feel a little better with medicine and went to the Capitol on Monday. And we were talking about this before the show. I'm by no means an alarmist, like, by any means, but I thought it was a very selfish decision, especially given the age of our lawmakers. And I don't mean that, I mean, we joke about how that's a bunch of old white guys and things like that, but I mean that from a genuine perspective, like the clerks that work there, the administrative assistants, the lawmakers. He put a lot of people at risk, and it was not on purpose, but it was reckless and without concern for anybody else. It was selfish, in my opinion.
Right, in a resolution that was not going to have any opposition. This is not like, coming off of your deathbed going, I have to vote for this because it's close. Not that would be an excuse. I mean, I don't know if he gave Ralston a big kiss on the lips or anything, but you have a responsibility. And look, we're coming into the yellow season. And this is the time of year that I really want to be outside, and it really sucks to be outside because of all the pollen.
Mm-hmm.
But he was symptomatic with a fever. And just because you take Motrin and reduce your fever doesn't mean you're not sick. The fever reducer makes the aches go away, makes the chills go away, but it doesn't stop whatever is giving you the fever. Yeah, I'm with you. This was stupid. It was self-centered. It was irresponsible of him to ignore any signs. And look, he got tested on Saturday. The tests, and this is of course last Saturday, not the most recent as this show drops. The tests were not coming back that fast. They're taking several days to come back. Mm-hmm. I mean,
well, he got tested on Saturday and found out Wednesday. 2 days after going to the Capitol.
Right. So these tests are taking several days to come back. Now he's exposed every lawmaker up there to it in both chambers. I saw a thing from your buddy Vernon Jones about, should I self-quarantine? I didn't go into the Senate chambers. And the answer is yes. Yes, now you have to, because it lives on paper. It lives for a long time on stainless steel. It lives on cloth, which I saw people walking around Publix with like their sleeves pulled down so they can to touch the grocery cart. I'm like, you understand that if it had the virus on it, now your sleeves have virus in it. Mm-hmm. And we don't even know the true extent of how it spreads. We just know it moves fast.
That's right.
His personal responsibility was to stay home. Was to stay out of it.
I don't think he has a primary opponent, Michael Caldwell, who's a state rep, and I don't think, this is just speculation, but he was running for Brandon Beach was running for Congress in the 6th district, and he dropped out because it wasn't going so well. And Caldwell announced while Brandon was running for Congress, and then, Brandon decided he was not going to run for Congress and he was going to keep running for his Senate seat. Caldwell didn't back out. So he has this primary opponent from somebody who's going to be at the Capitol, and I really don't think he would have taken the risk if it hadn't been for that. However, I would much rather be the person who gets a little bit criticized for, staying home, than be the guy who everyone across the state knows as the jerk who went to the Capitol. Not to mention, he had to have kept that to himself because they were taking temperatures. They had people in masks. They were on lockdown in that chamber.
Right.
So he chose not to say something to somebody.
Right. Right. Which man, I don't know. The amount of narcissism in that is amazing. What do you think about changing the rules in the state and honestly the federal legislatures to have some sort of distance voting?
On face value, I love the idea, especially in circumstances like this. I feel like they should be able to teleconference in, only because, I don't think I would like it from a perspective of the general session. I do think they should be in Atlanta, only because of the public participation. I think that we should all be able to send in a note and have them come out to the ropes the way that you do and say, I want you to support this. I want you to oppose this, blah, 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 whether they listen or not. I think they should have to have that face to face. But for something like this, I absolutely think it's great. And would have been cost effective, and I'd love to see it for per diem committee days outside of session, because then there'd be a lot less of them.
Well, the committee days would be very, very simple because they can easily do a Zoom conference.
That's right.
So your opinion is maybe under state of emergency?
Yeah, because they didn't do anything except this. And I like the idea of them not watching they'd have to work a lot harder to be convinced by somebody else before they make a decision, if that makes sense. Like, they might actually have a couple free thoughts of their own.
Yeah, I would like to see a secure way of doing it. I would certainly want it to be a video conference, because I want to see somebody's face saying yes or no, because that way we know it's not anybody else casting that vote. But in a state of emergency, I don't see a problem with doing it online. We would have avoided this whole thing, and it keeps every constituent represented. The primary problem with someone not showing up to vote is their constituents are not represented. They don't get a vote. So that would certainly alleviate the problems with someone saying, I'm going to drag my ass to the Capitol regardless. If we're able to say, hey, listen, we got a special session coming up under state of emergency. We're all going to be on this conference, and we're going to vote by voice. The conference may take forever, and the public is welcome to witness the votes on by using this link to observe it. That the biggest fear I would have with distance voting is things would happen completely in the dark, that we wouldn't be able to watch it. As it is now, you can go down to the Capitol, sit in the gallery, and watch how your lawmaker votes.
And I would even be in favor of, right now they all just hit a button and the board lights up, and they have 20 seconds to cast the vote, and of course they all watch and see what other people are doing before they cast theirs. So it's not like this would be any different, but I would support, just to make sure that the person is doing, do an actual roll call. Go by order and put their face on the camera so everyone can see, this person's a yes. Make them say it. So it's still everything is just on display. We watch every single one of them. It would take longer, but it would keep the process, to make sure.
It would be beautiful to see Gertler go, nah, brah.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, Senator Loeffler dumped stocks after a coronavirus briefing. So, our appointee sold off 7 figures worth of stock holdings in the days and weeks after a private all-senators meeting on the novel coronavirus that subsequently hammered U.S. equities.
Not a good look.
No.
Let me just tell you, not a good look.
Now, I don't know if she handles her own stock. I'm certainly not in the position to accuse her of actually using insider information. Hopefully, the fact that her husband owns the New York Stock Exchange, they know enough not to do that. That she would hand off her securities to somebody else. And look, I know people who are savvy traders who went to cash early in this, knowing that, projecting that something was going to happen. Moved, 50% of the assets into cash and wait for the fall, and then try to find the bottom and buy. I have no reason to believe that these folks would have any sort of inside information. But to your point, that is a really bad look
for her, because of her husband and because of the briefings.
Right.
Just so people are clear on what the optics here. And she had information before we did. I mean, they were told that, this was going to be a lot worse than we initially thought, and that, we weren't prepared. And
yeah. The fact that her husband owns the stock exchange, there's a lot of restrictions, and it may very well be that she had nothing to do with it, that they don't handle their own stuff. When you're a trader or you're married to a trader, there's a lot of restrictions on what you can do and what you can own, and things like that. And it may be something where they're blind as to what's going on. It also lends itself to the accusation that she made a phone call. Like, hey, this is going to happen. something bad's is gonna happen, move us out of stocks. I'm not accusing her of that, but if I were Collins, this would be my next mailer.
Oh, I'm sure they're working on the video for Facebook right now, the hit piece,
How's your 401k looking? Loeffler's doing just fine because she was able to make a move before the market fell. Oh my God! So speaking of Doug Collins and their election, the impacts of the virus on the election cycle. The presidential preference primary has been merged to May 19th.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this has put us in a unique situation because early voting was already underway. I mean, the election was supposed to be this coming Tuesday. Tomorrow.
Right.
When this drops.
I have serious questions for Raffensperger, which is, how do you tell somebody who voted early in the presidential preference versus someone who didn't? And if it shows they voted, are they going to be disenfranchised from their local primaries?
I think everything should have been thrown out because the any absentee ballot that is mailed and received by, even if right now you mail it and it gets there for Tuesday, they're just gonna save it. That's just I understand that the presidential preference is like a totally different type of election in terms of what the end result will be than everything else, but it just gives the opportunity for fraud. Why would you want that? Just cancel the election and put it on the 19th. Scrap it.
Right. It either is a recipe for fraud or disenfranchisement.
Yeah.
Now, by the time the 19th comes, it's going to be pointless.
Yeah.
Trump will be is the Republican nominee, and Biden will, 99.9% sure will be the nominee for the Democratic Party. So I understand we want all votes counted, but to your point, the difficulty, these voting systems aren't set up to do that. They're not set up to separate out those who've already voted for the presidential preference from those who haven't and give two different ballots. They're just not set up to do that. And I don't know, and I'm not a programming person. I often can't figure out my own damn computer. I don't know how you do that in time, because early voting is going to be soon, relatively as far as the projections of this virus, enough to make that designation. And then you've got people who went into Operation Chaos and crossed over into the Democratic side to vote for Bernie to try to throw the skew the numbers in the Democratic preference, and then we're going to come back over to their side and vote the Republican primary. And where's that going to leave them? Are they going to be forced to the Democratic primary? There's too many questions on doing that. And I think your plan is probably the most pragmatic, which is throw all of it out and revote.
Well, it's the only way to make sure, if the ultimate goal of our elections is to have them have integrity, then you got to start over.
Right. I completely agree. And the fact that it's going to be completely inconsequential, would tend to lean that way, because who's going to protest that?
Well, and I feel like you're talking about protests and lawsuits and everything. I feel like you're opening the door for more of that by doing this way. Because like fair fight, they're looking for a fight, literally. So they're going to come in and audit some of these places and then be like, well, they lost my ballot, or they did this, or they didn't count them right, or I mean, it's stupid.
Yeah, it's that this is lending itself to a huge Charlie Foxtrot, which is a yeah. So incumbents, like in the House and the state House and the state Senate, can't fundraise right now because they are still under gavel.
Yes, although they can if they're running for higher office, they just can't for their own re-election in the legislature.
Yeah, this is a huge hamstring to incumbents that are facing primary opposition. Look, like my guy Joseph Gullett is not facing a Republican primary. He is once again facing Allison Feliciano, who's been on this show, in the general. So this is not going to affect him. But there are plenty of these reps and senators that are facing primary opposition. They can't fundraise, and I think there's restrictions on how much campaigning they can do.
I don't know about that. But I mean, I know that people like Brandon Beach, we're talking about that. He's a senator. He's running for re-election. Michael Caldwell's running, and he's a House member. So they're both kind of like, that hurts Michael Caldwell because Brandon's the incumbent. He's the big money, like, red Republican, reliable yes vote. Although Michael Caldwell's voting record isn't all that stellar anyway, but they're kind of on an even playing field. You talk about someone like Jeff Mullis, who has Colton Moore, who's a state House rep who's running for the Senate now, and then has another opponent, Todd Noblet, I think is his name. That's an interesting dynamic. I think it helps Colton and the non-elected challenger, and not Mullis, because if the guy can raise money and then they're all out, if Colton's sitting there making calls and Jeff can't get the money that he needs, that's going to help one of them get into the runoff, because their work is not being overrun by money. So it's just an interesting dynamic across the board. Every one of them I don't think it is going to affect any single race the same, but it's definitely unprecedented.
Right. And to get away from the effect on the candidate, it is also a limit on free speech of the supporters. Because the way you express your support for a candidate, I mean, you can go on Facebook and say, I like this guy all day long. But political speech for the individual is donation. Yes. Because dollars are bullets, and a campaign is a battle. So it limits. If I want to go out and make a donation to somebody's campaign, I can't. So this is limiting my speech by saying that I can't make a contribution to this guy, and it sort of hamstrings him. Now, it also opens the opportunity for PACs. PACs can raise money. PACs can essentially do whatever they want. They're not limited by a lot of the things that candidates are limited to. So that's where you get dirty money, and you get a lot of the dirty attacks that come out is through PACs.
And I don't think, this, I'm kind of jumping ahead just a little bit, but based on some of the things that have been canceled at this point, I'm not sure we'll have an election on May 19th, honestly. I mean, we're seeing the University System of Georgia cancel graduations across the state. They canceled all the college graduations. I'm sure the technical college system isn't far behind them, which is going to trickle down to the high schools. Like, it's almost the end of March, but we're looking out 6 weeks and it doesn't look any better. And I can only imagine that as more testing happens and more cases become known, that the balance of mitigating and treating and the widespread is only going to lead us to cancel more stuff.
Right.
So.
Well, the federal government is mulling over and going back and forth between the House and Senate on cash payments to individuals. It would be $1,000 cash payment, capped at per adult, capped at $70,000 per adult or $150,000 per couple. And one of the things I saw was $500 per child.
I hate them.
Man, Matt Lowe's got 100 kids. He's going to do just fine.
I understand that they're saying like this, they're telling people like this will help you pay your utilities or whatever. But what is this really supposed to do?
It's buying votes.
Because they decided to do this. It's my whole problem with what the federal government, and even to a degree the state, although the states are doing a better job than the feds. Like, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? Don't tell me a dollar amount. Don't tell me what liberties you need to restrict. You can't even articulate what the end goal is. Is the goal to eradicate it? Is it to mitigate it? Is there a certain number of people? I mean, I know they're not going to come out and say, well, once 2,500 people die, then this happens. Like, I get that. I'm not asking for that. But I'm like, give me a concrete plan. The plan can be flexible and it can change. But you just pass a bill and you're going to have cash payments to people after 10 days of chaos. And you don't even know what you're trying to do.
Look, this is the role of MPOs. This is the role of churches. This is not the role of government. Look, if you weren't stealing money from me, I might have more in reserve. Look.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week. We all agree that this is going to be really, really hard on wait staff, bartenders, those who depend on tips, Uber drivers, people who are I hate to use the term, most vulnerable at that level. But you know who's hiring? Amazon's taking on additional staff and bumping their I think it's $2 an hour from $15 to $17 an hour because they can't handle the volume. Grocery stores are hiring. Walmart's hiring. They can't handle this influx, and a lot of these are temporary jobs. But that's really if you're a bartender, if you're a waitress, that's all you need is to get through. The private sector sorts a lot of this stuff out. We already have unemployment insurance, so if you become unemployed by no fault of your own, you already have that insurance, which that's a different debate. We already have other disability pay, welfare. We already have all these programs for those who are really affected that may find themselves in these positions. But no, this is absolutely vote buying.
Well, you know what really irritates me too, in addition to that, is that, so they announced last week, Georgia applied for the small business loan, reduced rates, like plan, basically a loan to get you through. Why are you going to subsidize major corporations and subsidize individuals and then tell the small businesses they got to take out a loan? I'm all for the loan. Like, I work for a small business, you work for a small business. It's an option. It's an option you can consider based on, whatever everyone's circumstances are different. But why are we're manipulating everything, and we're not even manipulating it equally. It's just like the cash payments aren't going to go to everybody. You don't have to be a taxpayer to get it. I'd be a lot better off if I didn't have to send $1,000 extra to the IRS in my income tax payment coming up.
Yeah, I have a large one looming. So yeah, speaking of that large IRS payment, the payment deadline has been extended. Individuals would be able to defer up to $1 million, and corporations would be able to defer up to $10 million for 90 days without penalties and interest. And
again, why is there a limit? Like, if it's good for one, it's good for all.
Right. Look, if you owe $100 million and you're Hilton and all your business just stopped, it just went to zero, it doesn't make you any more capable of paying that $100 million in tax that you owe. that there's a cap. Ah, man.
No, and talking about Hilton specifically, because I was supposed to go to a concert last week that obviously was canceled out of town, and I had a hotel room booked, and it was a non-refundable reservation that I made. And when this all started hitting the fan, I was like, well, I guess I'm out the $150 for that Hampton Inn room. And they sent an email saying that regardless of whether or not your reservation was non-refundable, they were going to refund the money. So again, one, the private sector is accommodating people because I guess they assessed and said these are losses we can assume for the good of our business later on because people won't hate us, so we're going to refund the money. And then on the back end, the government's screwing them when they did the right thing for the individual without government intervention.
Right.
Give me a break. So they defer payments, or they refund people and they don't get a deferral. That's wrong, in my opinion.
Right. And look, I've got hotels booked in Paris and London, and I paid extra to make sure that they're refundable.
You poor thing. Oh.
I know. The white privilege just oozes out of me.
Well, I mean, on my tickets, the tickets that I bought for the concert, I bought a little insurance, and I usually buy travel insurance. I just didn't because it was one night hotel, and I was like, if it's a loss, it's a loss. And then I was delightfully, surprised. But again, that's a personal responsibility thing that you bought refundable rooms.
Yeah. Well, the filing deadline, there's a negotiation in Congress right now to see if the April 15th filing deadline should be pushed back. I don't know who the hell is going to process them. They're all supposed to be distant. They're all supposed to be at home. Who the hell is at the IRS to process returns?
Well, from a organizational standpoint too, why are you having I understand that you want to just streamline the damn process. Don't have me file. I don't know. It's stupid.
I mean, look, Trump did streamline for individuals a lot that most people can file on half a piece of paper. I can't, obviously, with business taxes are a little more complicated than individuals, but
well, I'm just saying, why would you extend when you have to pay and not have the paperwork? It's the IRS we're talking about. Wouldn't we want the paperwork to go with the check just because it's the dang IRS? I know how inefficient they are. I've watched it.
Yeah, they are a hole in which we throw money.
Yeah.
It also, in the quote here, is a filing extension would also ensure that taxpayers don't have to violate CDC social distancing guidelines since they may have to meet with an accountant or need to physically retrieve documents to file by April 15th. And that's the truth, is I physically take files to my accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And, a big pile of receipts where she goes, you can't write that off, Dave. So I don't know. I think tax day should be on election day. And things might actually change.
The day before.
Yeah, day before. The first Monday of November should be tax day, and withholding should be eliminated. So you should have to write a check on that Monday before you go to the polls on Tuesday.
Preach.
So spring break.
Woo!
Yeah. As Jessica grabs the beer bong.
Yeah, right.
State departments issue do not travel advisory. Florida has shut down its beaches. Why? Because these idiots ignore it. They say, well, young people usually don't die from it, so we don't care. And they're on the beaches acting like damn assholes.
They are.
Sorry, Eric. Baldwin County, Alabama, shut down beaches. Florida has shut down the beaches. When you look at civilized people on the beach during this time, you see people set up their little towels or chairs or whatever, and they're 6-10 feet away from each other. And of course, when I go to the beach, it has nothing to do with the quarantine. if I'm forced to go to the beach, I want to be at least 50 feet from anybody else because people. But the spring breakers they're acting like there's nothing wrong. So they get back on the airplane, fly back to wherever they're going, Michigan or New York or whatever, and start spreading it on the airplane, spread it when they get home. It is unbelievably irresponsible. But
it is, and the whole thing is, all of it, if everyone would actually be responsible on an individual basis, you wouldn't need government to tell you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, is where are you on that? Where are you on government shutting down the beaches?
I don't agree with shutting down the beaches. I just can't get on board with that. Because, probably because I don't believe the government should own the beaches in the first place. But I don't think they should be able to shut it down like that. And I don't think that... I understand that the gathering, it's a spot where they're gathering. But people are just going to gather somewhere else. It's like... the people who right now are having people over to their house for cookouts or to have play dates inside with their kids. Well, you're missing the whole point. So it's not the beach that is the problem. It's the people passing a beer bong around or sharing drinks or hooking up or whatever. And then traveling with it. Hooking up. Yes, that's the PG version. But you know what I mean? Like, it's people that are the problem. It's not the location. They're just going to go somewhere else. If college kids are off for spring break and they can't go to the beach, they're going to go somewhere else and gather. They're not going to just sit home in their room alone. They're just not.
Right. Yeah, that is the truth. At least they're outside at the beach. I don't know. No, the government shouldn't be closing beaches. Just like the city of Gulf Shores made it illegal to drink on the beach during the months of spring break because they wanted the kids to go somewhere else. Of course, that law doesn't apply to me because no police officer in Gulf Shores is going to walk up to me and confiscate my beer because I'm a functioning adult, and that the law wasn't aimed at me. Spring break is always a problem. It's an economic problem for these municipalities because kids don't spend money. They come down, they go to the beach, they go to Walmart and buy a bunch of beer, and then they sleep 15 to a room. They don't spend money at the restaurants. They clog up the streets. The families don't want to be around them. The money spenders don't want to be around them. But as far as what can government do about it, or what should government do about it, nothing. There's nothing you can do.
Well, and again, unless you're going to shut down everyone and demand that they stay home under all circumstances unless they are driving to an emergency room, you cannot stop this way. You just can't.
No, yeah, we talked about it before the show. Even a quarantine, the exemptions are about 60% of the people. I'm exempt. The trades are exempt. Healthcare workers exempt. Going to the grocery store exempt. Therefore, grocery store workers are exempt. You're talking about 60% of the population that's exempt. You can't stop. You can't quarantine that way. A quarantine is just that. Nobody goes anywhere. Hospitals are shut down. Everything's shut down. Everybody stay in their house. And then, the I don't mean to be callous. Then whoever has it, fights it and they live or they die. But they're quarantined. Everything's shut down. You can't do that in a country. China was able to do it because they're a dictatorship. You just can't do it. Like I said last week, when someone was on the news, they put air quotes around Americans like their freedom. You just can't. Besides, you think the economy's bad now? Shut everything down. Yeah. You want to see the Dow at like 3? Shut everything down.
And again, don't expect me to get on board with any of this until you tell me what you're trying to do. I might not still be on board. I might still not like it. And I mean, whatever is going to be is going to be. But tell me what you're trying to do.
Right. This is a good time to say these have been our opinions and not necessarily those of All in Georgia. and certainly not those of any All in Georgia reporter not offering commentary on this show. Jessica, do you have any closing thoughts?
No. Do you?
Yeah, nothing is scarier than, I think it was Mitch McConnell saying, hold your nose and vote for this bailout package. God. Nothing is scarier to me than bipartisan, and nothing is scarier to me than a bunch of lawmakers saying we have to do something, so this is what we're going to have to do. Ugh.
Hold your nose.
Yeah, it was something to that effect. It was either hold your nose or try not to vomit or something. It was not bad. So, for Jessica Salagi, for Eric Cumby, who will have to edit one word for me, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.